Welcome in, everyone. We obviously have team lists tonight. We have Origin tomorrow, so plenty to go through. But I want to go through the impact of that next 3 rounds, as always, and a little focus on potentially some of the guys you might be looking to buying, from the cheaper versions that play most games and will help us out, all the way through to the keepers. And we'll kick it off with the Tigers, who only have 1 bye remaining. And you see here, all of the teams in that first section have the 1 left, and then all the guys below that, Eagles, Warriors, Roosters, and Cowboys all have 2 byes remaining. 3 of them in round 19, 1 of them this week in the Eagles, and then they have 1 later on in the round. So it's all something to keep a note of, and yeah, obviously just to check off the list, just to make sure you know what's happening in that scenario as well. So the Broncos have gotten through 2 of their byes, round 13, 16. They play 19, obviously, but they do have that 1 remaining in round 24. So for the Tigers, they have Roosters, Storm, and Sharks to get things going here in the next 3 weeks. So if you are looking at potentially any players from them, you're probably wanting middle forwards, to be fair, outside of holding Galvin. So he's the only one in the head-to-head team here. You could potentially buy him back, but he does have a tougher schedule coming up, so it would be hard to purchase him. Obviously, the Tigers are a team with a bunch of their guys coming back in the next few weeks. So Bateman, Twali, Clemmer, Isaiah Papali'i, all to return in the next month of footy. You're then sitting there with some of the guys that have already made a fair bit of cash in Samuel Fainu there. You could definitely probably still pick him up, given he's not a ridiculous price at $5.47. And it looks like he's got that spot in the side. He's really turned into one of their important players, that's for sure. In terms of their halves, it is Galvin only that you look at, and then outside backs, I'd be avoiding anyone like that. And obviously, the fringe guys that have been playing the last few weeks, unlikely that they'll continue being in this side longer term, unless there are injuries to their main guys again. We'll move on to the Titans in the next little section there, but let's go check out who they come up against. They got a bye this week, so not really one you want to focus on too much this week. But once that one's out of the way, from next week onwards, they are a very interesting team to target. Round 18-19, they come up against the Sharkies and the Eels, and then the Eagles follow that one. So, yeah, pretty middle of the road kind of draw there. Eels are last on the table, but we know that they have a strong amount of players. But with Moses out in round 19, most likely, could be a bit of a tough one for him. And then the Sharks in a standalone 18 with their good team, obviously. So Titans aren't too much of a team you want to target heavily. Like, I've got Campbell and Fafita in this side, and both of those guys, if Campbell is fine and fit, are 2 that you might be looking to target for sure. But outside of them, it's hard to think of anyone else other than maybe a Bofo Moore as a potential purchase in this side. I know it's hard to buy Kenny at this point at $6.24. If you did grab him in the last few weeks, happy days. But we'll have to see where Brimson ends up as well, and hopefully we find that out in round 18. In terms of their forwards, they've all kind of made a fair bit of cash there with Aaron Clark. Cleese Haas have gone up a fair bit. In terms of cheaper guys that you might want to have a look at, it's pretty slim pickings as well. Isaac Liu pretty well has a spot on this side locked in, but not scoring very well at all, and I can't see any of the other guys being clear options as purchases there. Dolphins are going to be next up on the list there. And they have the Dragons this week into the bye in round 18, which is their last one, but into the Rabbitohs in round 19, likely to be without Latrell Mitchell and Cam Murray again. So I think it's a pretty nice draw, to be fair. And then Panthers in round 20, obviously, but they might rest a few of their stars. Still should be a tough clash, but I do think that the next few weeks for them are not too bad at all. And there's a bunch of guys you might be looking to hold. My head-to-head team is very, very different to my overall side, having Fuller along with Plath, Jeremy Marshall King, and Ewan Aiken. But yeah, just Plath here. And I do think that he's still a potential purchase if you wanted to have a look at him for sure at that price. Aiken feels a little bit expensive right now. He's kind of treading water over the last few weeks, scoring well enough. Farnworth had his low one. I don't expect him to go too much lower than what he did last week, and he had a really good second half to kind of make up for it. Marshall King, I do think there's a few other guys I'd picked before Jeremy right now after seeing the last few weeks. Obviously, a little bit of recency bias, buying him myself, but yeah, there's that to note. Fuller, Flegler, we're not going to have a look at. Isaiah Katoa kind of just doing his thing there. Jermaine Asako, if you're not worried about round 18, he's an easy one you could grab at $5.50, a little bit under where he started at, obviously. Lemuelu, having a bit of a shoulder problem at the moment, it looks like. In terms of cheaper guys, you have like Kenny Bromwich, who can sometimes have really good games, but averaging 35 for the season, mid-edge dual. So he could be an interesting one for that like 19th, 20th, 21st man if you don't have enough cash to upgrade to the top guns. Because obviously you're looking to get sort of close to 17 pretty good 600k plus guys, but it's going to be hard to do that with the amount of trades we have left and also the amount of money that we have built up in our team values. And obviously 6 trades for the head-to-head squad plus the 8. You got 14 trades to make, and there's going to be some cheaper guys you have to bring into the side to do upgrades on the other end. So keep that in mind over the next couple of weeks for sure. Bostock's a 375. He'll have he misses this week, but round 19 will be his one where he has that high break even. So he's a bit of a tough one to purchase. You've got guys like Josh Kerr, Jesse Bromwich, who should be stuck in this team for sure, especially Jesse. And then, yeah, it's basically it. From there, there's no clear guys that will hold their spot. In the side there, you've got Storm, who have the Raiders and the Tigers over the next couple of weeks. So a nice little run for them, especially the Raiders with how they're playing right now. So I expect Storm guys to do really well into their buy in round 19, which is the end of their buys for the year, which is great. So we move to the Storm there, and I own a few in this team, obviously with Blory and Wishart. Shame I don't have Hughes in this head-to-head side, but he's someone that I think you can still definitely purchase. He's scoring really well. He's a good captaincy option for this week. Eli Katoa, if you want an edge, he's still a great one to purchase. Harry Grant's going to get really cheap, so have a look out for him eventually. You got Pap in there. I just don't think that he's a buy right now. He could come out and do really, really well, but you saw there last week that he scored a try and still only got 30, which he can do, but he can also come out and smash it as well. You got Christian Welch at 447, averaging 34, which is a little bit of a weird season for him, hasn't it been? So you got that. You've got guys like Nelson. Obviously, round 19, they have a bye, so that makes it a little bit tough, but he had bigger minutes last week and did score 32, so priced at 24, definitely a potential little bit of value in that one. We'll have to see what happens with Jack Howarth over the next few weeks. So cheap guys aren't too clear unless there were to be some injuries coming up over the next bunch of weeks. Sharks are next. So they have a good little run now. They got through their second bye. They have one remaining in round 20, but they play 17, 18, and also 19 there, which is really, really helpful there. So Dogs, Titans, and Tigers for them is a nice little run. To be fair, like Dogs away, they're going to be wanting to hit back and get a win. Titans and Tigers, I left this one as green just because they both got wins and they're playing pretty well across the last few days there, which is good. So with the Sharkies, sorry, I just had someone calling me, distracting me. But let's move to the Sharkies now. Okay, so what we're looking at with the Sharkies. So I have Britton Nikora and Kale Iro in this side for the head-to-heads. Nikora you could potentially purchase, but he kind of was struggling before that big score. You got Cam McInnes, it's under 700k now, who I think that probably will finish just a tick over 700. So he's probably a really solid mid to purchase if you'd like that, and don't expect him to get back into the Origin setup. Bradley averaging 44.3 with a 540 price tag, which is not too bad at all. You got guys like Oregon Kafusi, Williams, they're all getting down a little bit in price, but still a little bit too high as like a cash down type of scenario there. If we saw an injury to like Iro, you could replace with like Talakai, and then you've got some of the guys that aren't getting the big minutes. So it's a pretty tough little stretch for buying Sharkies players unless they're at a higher price there. Panthers have Cowboys and Broncos the next 2 weeks, which should be fun for them into the round 19 bye, but that's it for them as well. So you're looking at potentially, if guys like Isaiah Yeo and these guys back up, they are likely to just miss one more game if you don't expect them to miss any time after Origin there as well. They might miss one of them, but they're getting closer to becoming really good picks, guys like Isaiah Yeo for sure. And if you wanted to go for any of their cheaper guys, let's check them out as well. So for the Panthers, in this side, I do have Jack Cole, and hopefully he's a good hold. But if he's not, we have the top guys on the list. So Cleary and Yeo need to be in people's plans, potentially Dylan Edwards as well, post-Origin. They should all play the majority of those games and might get rested in the last game. And that's probably something to think about as well, is the restings that are going to come up over the last couple of weeks of the season. And if your team is in contention to make the 8, like the team that you're looking at picking players from, there's a good chance that they will end up playing in that last round, which will be very, very helpful, right? And if you are picking a team like the Panthers, there's a good chance of resting their players come round 27, that's something to note as well. So maybe not loading up too many on them, loading up with too many players could be a good little idea for sure. Just going for one or two could be the play. In terms of mid-price guys that are doing well, it's still Sorensen that's solid. Alamotti in there at 515. Fisher Harris doing decent things as well. And then the cheaper guys, you do have Isaac Tungo at 440k. So he could be an interesting player come probably round 20, that if you could slot someone like him in that has the potential to do really, really well, if he can have a bit of a bounce back, he could be a very cheap backup center that can be your like 19th or something man, 18th, and obviously play in weeks where you've got players on bye. He could be a very interesting one. I wouldn't grab him now, but I still think that he's a decent option in round 20 for sure. Guys like Moses Leota could be a potential guy to look at as well. Just at his really cheap price, and you know he's going to be there on a weekly basis, and sometimes has a line break and a try, in those types of games. So the Bunnies have a bye this week, and then round 18-19, it's a potential time to look at certain guys. Some people are looking at potentially going at Murray early. In this scenario, I think you've got guys like Keelan Kolomatangi, who are still a really solid buy come round 18. And, Mamazelis could be an interesting one down the track if he happens to get more minutes as the season goes on, and if we think that Cook might eventually, lose a few minutes to him, or they decide to play him a little bit more, would be cool. Johnson obviously is the cheap wing fullback that you could look at. Not super exciting at the moment, but he could definitely turn around at some point. And then, White and still at 440 is not too bad. In round 18-19, Totola looks like he won't play the rest of the season. Arrow's not too expensive. So, Cook, Latrell, all guys you can look at in the after their bye there for sure. Go to the Doggies next. They've got Sharks, the Wars coming into the bye. The only really one I would focus on with them would be Karaz at this point. Like maybe Stephen Crichton after Origin and their buys could be an interesting one as well, given the situation we saw with him in the last month or so, with Dogs playing really well. He was a catalyst in that, and that right center position is getting better and better, isn't it, since that start of the season, where Crichton was pretty average with his points at the start on the left, but then moving to the right, it was still a bit poor for a few weeks there. So that's all I'd really focus on with the Dogs. You've got guys like Curran, King, could be held, could be sold over the next few weeks. So that's that. Let's leave it at that there. The Eels, they got Knights, Bunnies, and Titans. So not a bad little team to target now that they've gotten through their second bye there. And guys like Hopgood, we obviously need to look at, and Moses come post-Origin, and they have a bye round 20 as well. So keep that in mind with those two guys, that it's round 21 for them. Penasini could be an interesting one this week. Moses likely to be backing up. We know that he's been scoring really well, so under 600k. Him, Bryce Cartwright are both very interesting there. Gutho's down at 489, so getting fairly cheap, and could be a guy that could do a job over a period of time there, and this could be the time that he does go well. Another week rest for him, which will be cool. Coming to a Lungy injured, unfortunately, and then it's really just Brennan Hands, who's at 366, so you could look at as well this week. Dylan Brown is like a really solid hold. At the moment, I wouldn't look to go out and buy him, and then Blaze Talangi, again, a hold at the moment until he ends up leaving this side, would be the simple thing with Blaze. For the Raiders, they got the Storm and Knights. Not really anyone in this Raiders side I'd be looking at too closely, to be honest. You got Weeks, who you'll be easily holding. They're not playing great at the moment, so to worry on all the other players apart from guys like Tarpany, who can really do some damage on their own. Really sad to not see much of Horsburgh this year, but Ellie Whitehead's been great if you want an edge that plays obviously the next few weeks. They do have that bye in round 19, which hurts them, but he's been scoring great, and they just have the one bye left. Geordie Rapana still scoring fairly well, got 38 last week, very similar to where he's priced at. Strange, you could easily hold. In terms of other guys, there's a few averaging sort of late 20s. Cottrigger 360, at that big one last week. You got Xavier Savage averaging 29 at 350, who at least is keeping his spot each and every week, and if they eventually give Chevy Stewart a go, maybe that could work out as well in the Raiders. For the Dragons there, you got Dolphins, Roosters, and the Broncos. Really, outside of like Tom Eisenhuth, I don't think there's still anyone to be picking from the Dragons. Lomax will miss around 19-20, so hard to buy him at the moment, so we'll leave the Dragons where they are. But round 19, their mids, any cheap mids could be cheeky option if there are injuries, but it's just hard to, there's so many high-priced middles and edges they've got on that side. The Knights have a fairly nice draw. They've got Eels, Raiders, and Eagles, so still potential for like Fletcher Sharp to do good things. The news coming out at the moment is that Will Price is going to play 6 this week. He's a 400k, which is a little bit of an awkward price, obviously, but half in the wing fullback duel. He's averaging a tick under 40 in New South Wales Cup, 39.8, which is pretty cool. You've got some cheaper guys here in Saifidi and Crossland, and the news around Brayley is that minutes are going to be a little bit more down for him, so maybe Crossland is a guy that could do a job at 350k, Sharps at 328, so that could be helpful over the next few weeks for sure. And that's probably it for the cheaper guys. Up top, Frizzell's getting a little bit cheaper. Leo Thompson's kind of solid, but I don't really think you want a mid-range at this point. You could buy Kaipis Paul if he's back and fit. You could buy Gagai as a gun, and then Ponga eventually could be fun as well. For the Broncos, they've obviously got their buys out of the way. It's Warriors, Panthers, and Dragons for them. So the big thing to note with them is obviously that they're going to miss a few of their middles to Origin in round 19, and maybe a couple of them don't back up this week. But Payne Haas and Carrigan, really, really good purchases post-Origin, similar to that with Reece Walsh. He'll likely to be similar price to that. He won't be going up anytime soon. I think he obviously missed out in Origin rather than missing out in first grade, so that was that. But Cobbo at 562 when he comes back, it's an interesting little pick. Dean Mariner at 484 has been doing good things. Stags is a little bit of an awkward price at 473, but cheap enough. We're going to get an opportunity for guys like Xavier Wilson at 417. He's averaging 34 for the year. He's kind of been solid when the boys are in the team. But if we do see any of Payne Haas and Carrigan miss some time there at all, I think Willison will be a good little pick at 400k. You can hold on to Piakura, obviously. You might get an opportunity for like a Bentakura or something like that. Karapani at 350 if something happens to their players. Cobbo and the like could be interesting, but for now, it's hard to kind of say any of them are clear buys, apart from like Willison's an interesting one to follow. Eagles have a bye this week in the Cowboys Knights. There's a couple of those forwards in Sipley and Brown with Paseka out that are interesting, and some people bought them last week and did really well, so we'll keep an eye out on them, but not a purchase this week. The Waz, they have Broncos and Dogs, and it's a pretty tough team to purchase from right now. AFB, Barnett are probably the only two you want to be looking at this point, and they still have their low games in them as well. Well, AFB does, Barnett doesn't at the moment, but so that's probably the main thing on Warriors. Roosters, they got the Tigers and the Dragons, but they do have 2 buys remaining. So just remember that with Eagles, Warriors, Roosters, Cowboys, is they've got this round 19 one. If you're looking at Origin players, there's that to contend with as well. They're backing up and the like, but then Teddy, if you're looking at him, Manu, these types of players, they do miss 19 and they miss 23 as well. So keep an eye out on that. And how many of those guys do you climb into? Are you holding Terrell May as well? Did you buy Nafahu White? Do you have Connor Watson? Like, there's so many of those guys to have a look at, and you need to keep an eye out on them and how many Roosters you end up with, because you'll miss them in 19 and obviously round 23 as well. So you might have been able to already plan for 19, but have you been able to plan for 23? That's the question. Probably not. I haven't planned that deep into it either yet. Cowboys, they got through their first bye, round 16, which is good. Good for them on the ladder as well. They're in the 8, wildly enough. Round 19, they miss, and then round 25. Yep, round 25. So 2 to go for them. Obviously, getting 1 out of the way for Drinkwater and those kind of guys is good. No one really clear in that mid-tier for them that you looked to, I think, given they've got a few guys like Jesse McLean's kind of been missing some time. That's where McKaylee's come in. Harrison Edwards has come in. So, yeah, no one really in there that's super amazing. Like Taumalolo has started to improve, obviously, at 430k. His last, 3 games is 39. Last 5 games, 31. So he's been playing better for sure, but not someone you need to clearly target, but could do a job for sure. Finn will likely be done once Nanai's back and everything like that. And then up top, it's guys like Robson, Nanai obviously doing well, Holmes, Cotter, these types of guys there that could do a good job for you. Him, Lukey at 490k is not the worst shout in the world. I've obviously got through round 16 now, so if you need an edge for this week, 18 maybe, and then round 20 and the like, that he could be a solid one that's kind of working into his role and doing some really good things. So I think that's where we should finish it off, but they do have the Panthers this week, so it's not super exciting for some of those guys, especially Drinkwater and the like, but hopefully Cowboys can put on a decent performance, and they fought really hard against the Panthers last time, and that was when Cleary played, and he was like, well, they have so much firepower, so hopefully they can come out and do that again. That'll be a really fun game this week. I'm keen to watch that. Hopefully they do play all right, and I think we'll leave it there for the 3-game impact video. Hopefully that gives you a bit of an idea on what to look at with teams and obviously some certain players over the next bunch of weeks. Yeah, I think we might not be able to get to cash outs this year unless something comes up with like a Chevy Stewart or Mamzelis or these types of players there. There needs to be injuries for that to actually come out where they get a role where they can keep the spot. Fletcher Sharp's probably got like three weeks in his arsenal left to play one, so he's not even the perfect cash out either. So yeah, there's lots to think about. You might have to go someone in the 300 to 450 range as like to get your cash in the bank to go up in other positions. So that's that video, guys. Thank you so much for being here, and we'll catch you in that team list video this afternoon.